Hi, everyone. My name's David, and this is a new series where we interview software engineers to discover the truth of what it actually takes to get a job in tech. Today, we have our very first guest, Austin. Austin and I used to work together for a coding bootcamp as learning assistants, helping students learn. And I noticed that he cared a lot about helping students succeed. So I wanted to bring him on today. Austin, do you mind introducing yourself and where you're at in your coding journey?
Yeah. My name's Austin. I have been, I think, coding for around almost 2.5 years now. Um, I graduated the UCF coding bootcamp around 2021. It was May of 2021. Right now, I'm a user interface engineer at a company called Soho Squared. Yeah,
Awesome.
a little about me.
How'd you get into coding in the first place?
That takes you way back. I actually started when I was in fifth grade.
Okay.
I started coding. It wasn't really coding exactly. I just did HTML and CSS. I did little like websites here and there. I was into baseball, so I'd make little baseball websites and little things here and there, just static websites. I got into it through a class that I had in middle school. It was this little STEM class, and just fell in love with it. And then from there on, I just always started making little websites here and there.
Nice. That's good that your school had it like your first year in middle school.
Yeah,
Right? Was it like
yeah.
like a computer lab that you were?
Um, it was like a multitude of things. We did like little like it was like the Lego like technological Lego things like where you I forgot exactly what they're called, but you can like program the Legos to like move
Scratch?
and like, little robots.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So we did that. And then they also taught us like basic web development, just HTML and CSS. Um, I think that was, I think that was like 10, 15 years ago, something like that.
So did you realize you wanted to pursue this while you're in
Uh,
school?
no, I didn't actually. I mean, it was a hobby. It was just
Yeah.
something cool. Like, when I got into high school,
Yeah.
I'd show friends like, oh, look at this little cool website I did. And,
Mm.
they'd always thought it was pretty cool that you could make like a little HTML website off a notepad. So, um, I always had fun with it like that, but no, I mean, I didn't realize until I graduated high school and I was going job to job. I wasn't really happy with what I was doing. I worked at multiple different like little fast food restaurants and didn't really know where I wanted to go with a career. I always know I wanted one, but I mean, I've always liked HTML and CSS, and I figured, I might as well, learn stuff like JavaScript and how to actually build more of websites. So that's when I decided to join the UCF coding bootcamp, and kicked off my career from there.
What made you want to do the boot camp? Why did you try teaching yourself at first, or continue on?
Um, I've always liked structure. I've always liked having classes and whatnot. I wasn't always the best at like self-learning and teaching myself and trying to stay on a single path. I'd always go from one place to another and felt like I wasn't really getting anywhere. So I actually found it through a friend of mine, and they asked me if I had heard about it because they knew I was into coding, and I looked it up, and it seemed a lot reasonable, a lot cheaper than going to college. So I'm like, hey, I mean, if it'll save me money, and I see people are getting jobs after a coding boot camp, I might as well, try to get into it.
Nice, that's awesome. Which did you do the 3 months one or the 6 month
I
one?
did the 6 month one, and that's just because I had to keep a job. So,
Sure.
um, I wanted to make sure that I had time for my job, and I spent about 30 or so hours a week. A lot of time after my job, and a lot of time on the weekends, just going through the course and doing all the little self assignments they assigned to us. So it was definitely a grind, for sure, but very very much well worth it.
That's great. So you finished the boot camp, and then what? Did you start applying for jobs, or what was your plan? What'd you do after?
Um, So, I mean, I came into this thinking, there's like as soon as I get out of the boot camp, like I have to get a job. That was my mentality is, I need to get a job, I need to get a career. At the time I was working for Papa John's. I was working for a little pizza place as a delivery driver. And I wanted more. I wanted more for myself. And I was dating my wife at the time, and
Okay.
we wanted to be able to move out of a house and make steady income. So, that's why when I was in the middle of the boot camp, around 4 month mark, I actually started applying for jobs. As we had learned React by that point. I knew enough front end stuff to where I felt comfortable, where I could probably get into a small front end position or something. So it also gave me good practice during interviews. So I landed maybe 2 or 3 interviews. I'd apply on like LinkedIn, and I'd apply on Indeed and all those like ZipRecruiter, all those like little websites. I put tons of applications in, probably hundreds of them. Just doing the little quick applications, and
Right.
I did a couple interviews. Didn't really get anything until after the boot camp, though.
So what was your job hunt strategy? So you mentioned that you found on LinkedIn, like what kind of positions were you applying for?
Anytime that like I had a break at work or anything, I would always do the quick applies. Though that was like my strategy for the most part. Maybe like five. I every week I'd do like five like really good um what do they call it, applications, where I wouldn't use the quick apply. I would actually, write a letter to the employer and actually take time researching the company. Any of the companies that I found that, oh, this is a company I really want to get into, I'd really do my research. I would talk to people who are in the company. Um, but my goal was just to get in. I mean, when you're
I
just
mean,
getting out of a, yeah, go ahead.
back up a step, like what kind of jobs were you looking for? Like what criteria
Um,
would you like apply with? Yeah.
so but like technology wise, or
Yeah, like what were your keywords that you searched for?
oh yeah, so I searched for like JavaScript jobs. I mean, I knew JavaScript, so I'm like,
Right.
yeah, might as well do JavaScript or React jobs. And there are even jobs that I applied for that I didn't technically qualify for, but I figured I could learn the language. I looked for anything that was really front end because that was my passion at the time. Um, and it was mainly all remote jobs. I mean, the amount of remote jobs there are right now is you know, you could apply to hundreds of them.
Right. Okay, so you like applied to like 5 a week, you said around or five?
No, it was like 20 a day,
Oh,
honestly.
okay.
Five like good ones a week, but 20 a day around.
And what was your resume strategy? What sections did you have in it?
Um, man, it's been a while since I've even looked at the resume, but I know that I had like a little header section at the top that just pretty much gave a brief description of who I was, what my background was, why I'd be a good fit for a company.
Mm,
Um, and then I would go on to the skills section, so it would show all of my
yeah.
skills, like I have HTML or CSS, React, stuff like that. And
Okay.
then my next section would be the job history. So I just put in my job history and would relate them to why I would be a good fit to like a coding career. And
And are these your random jobs that you've had?
yeah, just random jobs. I mean, this to at least show something. I also volunteered for and this actually really helped me out, is I volunteered for a reptile rescue and made their website. So I was able to put that on my resume as volunteer work to show that I had actually real life experience in the engineering realm.
Yeah, I saw that, and they wrote your letter on LinkedIn, right?
Yeah,
I guess.
yep. I asked for a letter of recommendation, and that actually helped me get my first job to show that I actually had some experience in the field,
So how'd
even
you
though it
find
wasn't.
how'd you find this volunteer opportunity?
This was actually through my dad.
Okay.
My dad's current wife ran the rescue, and I went through him. And he knew that I was big into coding and whatnot. Their website was on Wix. They wanted more customizability. So I went ahead and asked him and offered, like, hey, I'll rebuild your website and manage it and all that. So I mean, to this day, I still I still manage it.
Nice. And what you remember what stack you use?
At the time, it was just HTML, CSS,
Okay.
and JavaScript. I built it in my second week or third week of the boot camp, really early on. And I haven't, changed it to another stack or anything like that, but I have added a backend to it with like MySQL and Node.js and whatnot.
Nice. That's good. Okay, so you got this volunteer experience, you got your miscellaneous work experience, your skills, and was that your projects, right? In
Yeah,
addition,
yeah. I feel like a portfolio website is
yeah.
definitely a huge asset. I mean, that will actually show that all the websites that you build and whatnot. So I added a link on there as well.
Okay, and your portfolio, do you remember how many projects you had?
Seven total, I think. I think I had seven total that I show online.
And did you use any templates or you designed it?
I mean, it was part of the boot camp, to be
Yeah,
honest with you. So a lot of the things that I put on there were part of the boot camp, but I also put like the reptile rescue as part
yeah,
of that. And other small projects that I decided to work on my own. I didn't really use a template though.
awesome. I got it. So you finished the boot camp, you created your resume, and then you just started applying like 20 a day, right? So
Yeah, yeah.
what you notice when you started doing all of this? Were you getting traction? How did
Um,
you feel?
So when you're applying like that with the easy applies and everything, a
Yeah.
lot of other people are applying with you. So it's hard to gain traction that way. I will say that you're going to get a lot more traction if you actually get personal and talk to people and
Hmm.
do your research on the company and reach out to people in the company or even the manager, the hiring manager personally. You're going to get a lot more traction from that. Though the way that I tried doing it was like yeah, I mean, I just went ham and went after as many interviews as I could. I maybe out of the few hundred applications or maybe thousand application or so that I had put in, I maybe got five or six interviews. So, the ratio to the interviews to the amount of applications I put in were pretty low.
Hmm. So during this time when you finished the boot camp and you started applying for jobs, were you also working on the side as well?
I was working at that Papa
Okay.
John's company and also doing the volunteer work.
Yeah, so I was gonna ask, how did you manage uh applying for jobs, working? Did you still continue to learn new technologies, or you kind of,
Yeah. So, I mean, I was a pizza delivery driver, so in
yeah,
between times where I'm not delivering, I would go on my phone, go on Indeed or ZipRecruiter or any other ones, look for more that are in my criteria. I even enabled notifications so that it would notify me on new positions that open with my criteria.
okay,
And I just consistently applied and applied and applied. While I was at work or while I was, before I was going to bed. I mean, it takes like 5 minutes to apply to those jobs, so it was
mhm.
it was real quick.
And then what about the learning? Did you uh learn any new technologies during this time?
Yeah, so after the boot camp, I was consistently learning. One technology that I got into learning a little bit too was Angular, so I could kind of expand my portfolio of different web frameworks that I knew.
Okay.
It was difficult to manage and balance for sure. It can get pretty tiring when you're spending your day working. Maybe you're working 40 hours a week, and then at that point you got to make some sacrifices sometimes where maybe you'd be able to spend time with your family for, an hour or two. And now some of that time has to get cut off for, learning a new technology just to, try to get into that, new position.
Right. Yeah, it seems like you're really grounded. And then
Yeah.
so you said you mentioned like you got like five or six. Like, did you notice any patterns of what they asked you, like of what they would ask you about your resume, how they would interview you?
Yeah. So, I mean, it varied company to company. There were some companies that did coding algorithms, and
Yeah.
I'll be honest with you, I wasn't very good at coding algorithms at the time. So I kind of bombed those ones, but there were some that they talked about specific, like it would ask me specific like JavaScript questions, like what are the different types of data types in a JavaScript framework, and they would ask me, little CSS questions here and there, React specific questions. Some even do, take home tests.
Mhm.
And those are honestly my favorite because then you can be really creative and show the company all the creativity you have, especially with if you get in a front end position. Usually they'll say, hey, you need to build this app. These are the requirements, like you would in a real, job. And then you'd go on and build that application. They usually give you maybe like a week to do it, and then you'll send that back.
Yeah. So yeah, get a mix of questions. So with the data structure and algorithms, was it just like a screening, like a hacker rank, or you
Yeah, pretty
tested?
much. There's one that actually used HackerRank to do
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
And then did you ever had one where you did one of those problems in a live interview, live coding?
Right, yeah. There was one that I did it. I'm honestly I bombed that interview. It was I forgot what company it was with, but I know that I didn't do very good. After that interview, I started really focusing on the data structures and algorithms through HackerRank, through LeetCode. I
Yeah,
even did Code Wars as well. So I would just grind those, after I got off work.
right. And then with the take home, like how do you remember about how many of them you done?
I did one, and that was actually the one that I got
Oh,
the job with. Yeah.
nice. So when you did, would they, and then you interviewed with them, did they ask you about it, or you just move on? After,
So with the first interview, they asked me like, some specific questions, and then they gave me the take home test. And
Mm,
after I was able to finish it, and I sent them the GitHub repo, they we had that third interview where we discussed why I may have chose to design my Angular application a certain way,
yeah,
um, why I position things on the page a certain way and stuff like that. They want to know. It's kind of like a demo. You're pretty much demoing your product. You're demoing your code and showing how your code works. And they want to see that you didn't just like copy and paste this from a website. They want to see that you actually put a lot of thought into it. That you really know what you're talking about, and they'll even challenge you. Be like, why didn't you do something this way over another way you could have done it? You'd have to, try to explain why you decided to make design decisions.
right. Yeah, I think that's very important that engineers can think through, make decisions uh, on how to do something. And yeah,
Right.
coding a take home project and interviewing about it would be a good way to ask. Would they, like, throughout these interviews, um, would they ask about your previous projects? Would they quiz you through those projects as well?
I didn't have interviews on those. I had one that was the it was the reptile rescue
Right. Okay.
that I did have one. They asked me about it. They just asked me what stack I used and whatnot, but they didn't really ask me too many specifics of the actual code.
Mhm. And then you also mention that they will ask you like fundamental questions about like JavaScript, right?
Mhm. Right.
Did you when you had these interviews, did you know they're gonna ask you these kind of questions? Did you prepare for them?
No, I didn't know because like there's so many different questions that an
Yeah, that's the
interviewer can
hard
ask
thing.
you. So
Yeah.
it definitely is challenging. But when you don't know it, don't try to like it's important not to get scrambled and be like, oh crap, I don't know it, and start sweating and freaking out. It's okay to admit, hey, I don't actually know this, but it's good to explain how you would get to know that, how you would learn it. Like you could say, I would learn it by looking at the documentation, or I would learn this by, doing a Google search or something like that, and just be totally open and honest with them, instead of, guessing or something like that. Companies want to, know that, that you have the openness and willing to learn, and you're not going to just assume things essentially.
Right. That's a good point because yeah, when we work as software engineering, you get tickets, you get problems going in you don't know how to solve. That you have to
Yeah, every day, every
yeah,
day. Yeah, and I think it's a really important aspect is that companies aren't gonna expect you to know 100% of everything. Like, even software engineers who've been doing this for 20 years, they still have to Google stuff all the
Right.
time.
You
Yeah.
just have to know you can figure things out.
Right. Yep. You can problem solve. That's the big thing.
Right. So you got this job and then you started working. So what kind of technologies were you using with you in your first job?
Yeah, so we used Angular and
Mhm.
Node.js along with PostgreSQL, which is a lot like MySQL. They're like pretty much identical. There's a couple caveats, but yeah. So I used Angular before that. I didn't know any Angular. I'll tell you that. I week before that I did my first interview with them. I spent a week just consistently learning Angular, watching tons of videos on it, doing little projects on it, really trying to get to know the framework before I actually got into the interview.
Okay. So when you were interviewing with them, you knew that they use Angular.
I
And
did, yep,
okay,
yep.
so you
I applied specifically for an Angular position, even though I didn't know a lick of Angular.
awesome. So now that you're working, you have your job, like what skills do you think or technology you think you should have like practice more and learn more about more now that you're like working?
Hmm. Let's see here. That's a good question. Uh, I guess I want to like I wish I would have learned more JavaScript than I had known. I mean, I pretty much just got all the JavaScript that I had known from the boot camp, and after that, I focused on frameworks. I mean, that's the main thing. I focused on learning frameworks, though. I mean, there's a lot of like array prototyping with JavaScript, and there's more complex JavaScript concepts that it probably would have been better for me to know beforehand and to kind of focus on because when I got into code reviews and whatnot, something that seemed simple to somebody I didn't even know, and then I'd um, you know get my PR thrown back at me and be like, hey, you should change this to this JavaScript method, to this JavaScript method. So I suppose learning JavaScript a little bit more deeply would be one thing that if I had to go back, I would totally do. Things you could do is like read a JavaScript book. I think Eloquent JavaScript is a really, really good book. I'd recommend to anybody, even if they're just learning JavaScript.
Right. Yeah, definitely. There's a lot to JavaScript and it's constantly evolving. And
Yeah,
like I noticed at work, they want to use the new stuff. I don't know about it's like your job. They want to use the new JavaScript
yeah,
because it's like more efficient.
right.
This is awesome. Any any other well, okay. You also tutored a lot of students. Any anything you noticed that patterns that you can see like any advice you want to tell the students like
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, I was a senior LA, so I dealt with a lot of students who were, very frustrated at the time or very stressed out at the time. And, learning code, it's going to be stressful. You have to pretty much change your entire way of thinking that you normally would. So it can be a very, very stressful time to learn. Um, One of the things I always told the students I talked to is, if you're really stressed, if you're really frustrated, it's always good to get up and take a break. I know deadlines are really stressful. In the boot camp, you're going to get deadlines. You're going to have to finish a project by a certain time. In your work, you're going to have the same thing, maybe even stricter deadlines that seem totally impossible. There's been plenty of projects I've had that it just felt like there's no way I'm going to get this done on time. And then it gets to your head, you get real stressed, and then you're coding, and then it's like, I don't know how to do this thing. I don't know how it's going to be possible, or you can't figure out a bug, and it get real stressful. Honestly, the important thing is to get up and take a walk, even if it's like getting up, going for a 10-minute walk outside, or if you're just gonna get up from your chair, do a couple sit-ups, just get your body moving, and usually that will really help you out. Usually, like when I'm taking that 10-minute walk or something, I'll try not to think about the problem too much and I'll just relax my brain. And as soon as that happens, normally I figure out a way that I could figure out, the bug or the challenge that I was working on, and just looking at it from a totally new perspective. Because when your mind's under that much stress or, you're real anxious about something, you're not going to be thinking clearly. And something that may have seemed obvious whenever you were walking would never have been obvious when you're sitting there frustrated.
Right, that's a good point. Take a step back, take a break if it's too consumed, go for a walk. And it's
Yeah.
nice thing about working from home. No one's
Right.
out.
It seems counterintuitive. Like I know that when you're on that deadline,
Yeah,
you're like, any second that I waste from coding is going to, make it to where I can't finish a deadline. But honestly, it's going to take more time. You're going to be there for hours frustrated when you could just get up, take a walk, calm down, come back at it a clear mind. You'll probably figure it out in the next 20 minutes.
right. Oh, and I forgot to ask still about your first job. So the job you actually got, did you find it online, applied code, or was it a
So
referral?
it was actually one of the ones that I brute forced. It
Okay,
was one of the ones that I did, 20 interviews. It was like the one that I got, one of the 5 or 6 interviews that I had, was the one I actually got.
nice. It's fine. Sometimes the one you apply to that you least expect to hear back.
Yeah, yeah. Like usually I don't expect to hear back, but I hear back from them like, oh, okay, this is cool. And then I got the job. I'm like, once you hear that you got your first coding job, it's a really, really awesome moment.
Awesome. This has been great. I think you have a very unique story of like working in retail, not retail, I mean the fast food,
Right.
like really pushing yourself uh to do this and working very hard, going through all the rejections to make it through, volunteering, doing something for free. I did a free internship as well to
Right.
experience to apply uh what I learned to something where there's at stakes. So really appreciate it. Any last words, Austin?
Just I advise everyone to just keep going at it. It's a grind, it's tough, it's challenging, but once you get that first coding job, it'll definitely be worth it by that point. Yeah, just keep on learning, don't ever stop learning.
All right. Thank you so much, Austin.
Yep, thank you.